wherever you are on the spectrum in here, like if you think there's a lot of discrimination in the United States or the world, but we'll just stick with the United States, there's probably a lot less than you think there is. And if you think there's not much discrimination, really, there's not a lot. We've come a long way, things are changing. I will tell you, there's probably a lot more discrimination. There's more discrimination than you imagine that there is.
That is very fair, and I'm happy that he said that. Like, he be spitting facts.
What have you been told about how much discrimination exists in the United States?
So I feel like there's discrimination in all aspects of our life. Like, I feel like when you think about discrimination, a lot of the time it comes down to race or gender, but biases they do.
So you've been told that. You've learned that.
So I would say in a teaching aspect, we have been taught a lot about discrimination, at least for the race side of things.
So this video is about, is there discrimination in America? I put on the captions for this video because the mic was having issues, but this is Professor Richard's sociology class, I believe. And he's asking college students, is there discrimination in America? What's the most common levels of discrimination? What does the professor think about discrimination? I think this is a very great video in this political climate. Let's not waste any more time. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and let's go.
But I feel like the bigger picture has to deal with being more broad than just race, kind of agreeing with what Isabel was saying. There's also, you could be discriminated by your social caste or how wealthy or poor your family is. A lot of people really recognize that, but it is really a bigger issue than what you would realize.
So how much is there? How much discrimination is there?
I feel like it's difficult to physically quantify that, just because it really can happen to anyone. I could feel like I could point to a lot of people in the room and they could have experienced it on their own, but unless I spoke to every single person, I wouldn't be able to put that in the numbers.
I agree that it's pretty hard to quantify. It's not really something you can have as just a number, but I see a lot that over time it's gone down, especially decades. Not to say that it doesn't exist, but
wait, can you go back? Have you been told? Just think about going to school and society, media, et cetera, et cetera. Would you say that you've learned that there's a lot of discrimination, or a little bit, or somewhere in between, or?
I agree with what Isabella said, that it's kind of something that is in every part of our decision making, not just on things like race or gender, but just how we would perceive other people.
All sorts of things. Even like Isabella having 2 tattoos, right? So she could get discriminated against on the basis of that.
Yeah, someone could do that.
Okay. All right. So what's the most common discrimination? Just thinking about the U.S. Isabel, Hank, we'll stick with you. What's the most common discrimination? What group of people or what people are most likely to be discriminated against?
I think in media, it's mostly race and gender.
Race and gender. And in race, which group?
Darker colors. I think in reality, in other places, I feel like there's a lot of wealth discrimination. But I think in media, they tend to lean more towards gender.
So here, so people with more darkly pigmented skin, so not just black people, but Afro-Caribbean, black Latinos, etc.
Yes.
So skin is a big thing.
I would kind of agree with both of them, since especially in at least American high schools and just growing up with the school education system, it's a lot of the race would have to do with discrimination based on a darker skin tone, or I guess in simple terms, anything that's not exactly white. At least that's what portrayed is, especially within the media in more recent times. They kind of just want to keep pushing that idea when it's really more broad than that.
So you feel like there's a certain, hey, how much did you, so for you, for example, you have black ancestry. I can see from looking at you, you have black ancestry, right? But you're more lighter skinned and your hair is like so when you think about discrimination, with yourself, what do you first think about?
Well, at least me personally, I could think that I don't want to say it like in a bad way, but I got lucky with it just because I never really grew up thinking like at least that I was getting discriminated against just because of my lighter skin tone. But you see my blood sister, same parents as me, has a pretty considerable margin more melanin than I do, which it's just a matter of like a couple years where she is a lot darker than me and gets mistaken as more African American than I am. But it also adds in the picture that I didn't really fully realize my ancestry until recently, so it just wasn't something I grew up thinking about in my day-to-day life.
Before we go too far, what do you guys think about discrimination? Like, what do you think? What do you think America's discrimination is like? Because this question will lead into what they're about to talk about, which is, do you think America talks about race too much? Oh man.
Hey, Hank, do you feel, a lot of people feel like the issues of discrimination are really kids in school systems these days, whatever these days are really inundated with conversations about discrimination and racism and sexism. Did you feel like that growing up?
You mean like they talk about it too much?
Yeah. Or an exception, maybe not too much, but a lot. Like, do you feel like people were talking about it just a lot? Whatever that means for you.
On media, on the news, or TV, I think that's kind of a big thing. But me to my friends or my family, not really. No.
Do you ever think about yourself as being, Korean, Taiwanese, being discriminated against? Like, do you think about discrimination for you?
No. Not really.
Yeah.
I lived in Korea for 6 years, so that probably I had less opportunity to do that. Probably.
Yeah. Hey, Isabella, I have a question for you. What do you think? How do you think I would answer this question? How much discrimination exists in the United States today?
I mean, I feel like you've been doing this for a long time and you've witnessed like a lot of social change.
Yeah.
Like for how long you've been teaching this class. So I would say you're probably more optimistic about the discrimination in the United States as it's progressing a less substantial amount.
So if you had to say like, yeah, Sam probably thinks that there's less discrimination, but do you think I think there's a lot? Think about me as a white guy, and imagine me as a black guy. Okay, Black Sam teaching this class, or as a woman, or as being gay. But let's just do Black Sam and White Sam. Do you think, as whites, how do you think you would answer that question differently if I was black?
I think that because of your position as a white man, much personal discrimination.
Yeah.
So that might how you as a whole. So you would, like, if you were a person.
So if you guys are having a hard time understanding what she's saying because the mic is cutting out, she said that because you're a white man, you may not have faced much personal discrimination as a whole. So that may affect how you view American discrimination, meaning that if you were black or if you were a different race or minority, that will greatly change how you view discrimination, specifically racial discrimination. And here's what I would personally say about that as a black man. Here's what I'll say. Discrimination exists for everyone, and people who say that it doesn't, they're 100% lying. I don't care what you look like. If you're watching this video, I am 99% sure you have faced discrimination. You have faced it either at school, you have faced it at a job, you have faced it just walking down the street. I know for a fact you have, because everyone does. So when you look at discrimination, and then you look at, oh, who faces the most discrimination, it's really hard to quantify who is facing the most discrimination today, because it just depends on where you're from. It depends on who you grew up around. It depends on what industry you're in. It depends what gender you are. It depends what race you are. However, one thing I can know for certain is that if you're trying to build your life up and you're trying to get something out of life, such as money, a career, stability, a family, you cannot concern yourself too much with these things in America. Because one thing America allows us to do is build up the life that we want. You will face problems. I know for a fact you will. I know I will too. But America still gives us that opportunity to get the life that we want. And if we try to sit around and say, I faced more or I faced less discrimination than you, I can promise you this. There is somebody out there who's doing who's doing more than you with less resources. There's somebody out there who is facing more discrimination than you, who's facing more problems than you, who's faced more challenges than you, who's had a harder childhood than you, who grew up with less ideal circumstances than you, and who's doing more with life in America, because America gives us that chance. So rather than focusing on the problems that you're facing, because you will face problems, you need to be focusing on the life that you want to build. And I'm speaking firsthand. I have a master's in engineering. I'm an engineer by trade. I still do videos because I find them interesting and I like the objective perspectives of it. But yeah, that's what I think about it.
Of another race, you'd probably think there's more discrimination than you do if you're white.
Got you. Okay. So you think if I were black, by the way, that's a cool question, right? That I just asked her. Like, I'm not trying to trick you, by the way. I just think that's a really cool question, right? Logan, can you answer that question? Like, if I were black, first off, do you think I think there's a lot of discrimination?
Well, considering you've been teaching at Penn State for the last 30 years, roughly, I mean, this classroom is as diverse as it can probably get. So I believe you would be more on like the lesser side of things for discrimination, but at least in terms for your personal self.
Can you explain that? Because that really would have nothing to, the fact that the class is diverse or whatever, right? It's really a matter of like, I look at the world, I study race relations, I study gender, I study all these things, right? Do you think me, the professor of the largest race and ethnicity class in the world, which is this one right here, do you think this professor thinks there's a lot of discrimination or a medium amount or not a lot? Forget about the past, forget about the present. Like, what do you think I think right now?
I would say medium to the lower end.
Uh-huh. Hank, would you agree with him?
I guess it depends how much you call a lot, but I think you would think that there's less now than there is in the past, so I would agree that you would kind of think there's not like an overabundant amount of discrimination today.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of interesting, right? I mean, I'm asking this question. I'm not giving you anything to measure it on, because I mean, this is a problem. You're like a math person, so you're math, so you must be going like, wait, what's the standard that we're using by a lot or a little or a medium amount? I mean, I'm giving you nothing. But we nonetheless have these kinds of conversations all the time with people. And, and so I'm just throwing it out there because everyone makes assumptions about these kinds of things, right? Discrimination is less of a problem than many of you imagine it to be. And there's a lot more discrimination happening than others of you think is actually happening in the United States and in the world. Wherever you are on the spectrum in here, like if you think there's a lot of discrimination in the United States or the world, but we'll just stick with the United States, there's probably a lot less than you think there is. And if you think there's not much discrimination, really, there's not a lot. We've come a long way, things are changing. I will tell you there's probably a lot more discrimination. There's more discrimination than you imagine that there is. Okay? And I think that's fair, right? Would that be fair?
That is very fair, and I'm happy that he said that. Like, he be spitting facts. He really be spitting facts, bro. Like, he said what I said. Majority of people face discrimination. Like, if you're comment down below if you have. I know you have. I know for a fact you have. However, he also said something that I touched on earlier. Discrimination is less of a problem than you imagine it to be. Meaning that it exists. Obviously, it exists. But if you're thinking that racial discrimination is genuinely, in America, I'm speaking specifically for the United States of America, it's genuinely the reason why you cannot make six figures or why you cannot get a job. I'm not saying the perfect dream job you want, but a job, it's just not true. And I'm not trying to push a narrative. I'm being like objective. It's objectively not true. However, you still do face discrimination. Majority of us face discrimination in some aspect. We cannot shapeshift our religion. We cannot shapeshift our race or our gender. We are who we are. And some people just do not like that.
Because first off, how do you know how much discrimination is happening in the world, man?
You really don't. You really don't have any measurement for it.
Do you have any sense? Like, this is something I've been studying for 40 years. And I will tell you, I barely have my thoughts wrapped around it. So, like, how would you know? Like, I'm asking this question, how much discrimination is happening in the world? And like, are you thinking like, how the hell would I know? No?
I mean, I feel like the only way there is to know is to study it and to like understand experiences that people have had in like certain populations, and I estimate off of that. Like, I don't know if there's any like real equation.
Well, listen, and even if you have your own experience, like you have your experience as a woman, right? But that's not all women. Like, how do you know? That's one singular experience. You just have no idea. So this is the stuff. We're having a lot of arguments about things that we really don't know much about. All right, so listen, man. They asked American people, how much discrimination do these different groups face? And a lot and some. So we're going to look at two numbers, a lot and some. So we're going to say discrimination, okay? I'm going to show you the answers for what Americans say about these groups. Who faces the most discrimination and of these groups, and who faces the least? Who do you think faces the most? Who do you think people say? If I ask this classroom, who are they going to say experiences the greatest amount of discrimination?
I would probably say African American people and Muslims.
I think I would agree and have those two close to the top.
Discrimination against Muslims is kind of more recent, post 1990s thing.
Yeah, okay.
Historically, I feel like black would probably be.
But what do you think? This is recent. So this was a poll that was just done.
Oh, yeah, people might think different. Then I would agree probably black and Muslim.
So here's the numbers. Transgenders is the top. Americans, pretty overwhelmingly. Then blacks, Muslims, and Hispanics are basically the same. Jews.
Bro, I'm going to show y'all the chart one more time, but this chart is insane. There's a ranking. This is crazy. There's a ranking of discrimination statistics. Like, and this is just personal, like people asking people on the street, what do y'all think? But this is what I mean. We're out here ranking who's facing the most discrimination based off of race, gender, sexual orientations, all these type of things, religion. We're just ranking it based off of everything. And this is what I kind of touched on. A lot of people face discrimination. Everyone faces discrimination. And it's kind of like a game. Who faces the most discrimination? And it's a weird set of combinations sometimes. And if you try to really fight off of like, oh, I face more than you. No, I face more than you. No, I do. It just gets really, really, really messy. We just have to embrace it. We're all going to face discrimination. Try your best to be a good person. Try not to be out here obviously discriminating against anyone. Just try to be a good person and be the best human you can be.
People in the LGBT community, Asians, and the men are at the very bottom. They also continued with different people. So if you look at this, everybody thinks everyone's getting discriminated against at some level. You got old people like me, you know, 16% of the people that they asked in the poll, this is the Pew Center, this is a good poll, said that they think old people are discriminated against, like me. And a lot. And 43% said some old people. So it's just like atheists, religious people, evangelicals, everybody's thinks that somebody's being discriminated against, which makes me think discrimination is just built into the human existence. These groups face discrimination. That's the statement, okay? And the dates are 2024 and then 2025. And so if you look let's just go with Asian people. It's 84% in 2024 and it dropped. So only 84% of the people said, yes, Asians experience discrimination. Or pardon me, 75% of the people on average. The Democrats said in 2024, yeah, but 84% of Asians experience a lot or some discrimination, but only 66% of people who identify as Republican. You see that? But in 2025, after Donald Trump is elected, all those numbers go down significantly for Republicans. So in 2024, Republicans, 66% said, hey, white people experience a lot or some discrimination, but in 2025, only 55%. So even that goes down. So here's my question for the three of you. What are Republicans seeing that Democrats aren't seeing about discrimination? Because across the board, Republicans are saying, post-Donald Trump, second election, discrimination is going down. What are they seeing that Democrats aren't seeing?
I'm going to go with conservative media, which, I mean, just depending on your news source is going to cover, I guess, different topics that those political parties deem important.
So, you think conservative media is more likely to report that discrimination is going down, it's less of an issue now?
Yeah, I think that's true. Conservative media obviously plays a part the same way liberal media plays a part. And I'm also thinking that they're probably, I don't know. I'll just say that they think everyone's discriminated against. Because if you notice with the conservatives data was very persistent, meaning that 54% of conservatives think that black people face discrimination, 54% of conservatives think that Hispanic people face discrimination, 51% of they think Asian people face discrimination is 51%, and they say 55% for white. White is the highest. But one thing about the Republicans is that their data is very, very consistent. They basically think majority of people face discrimination at the same clips. I don't think that's the case. I obviously think some groups face more discrimination, but one thing that is evident is I think that all groups do face discrimination. I don't think there's one group who's just free from discrimination. I don't think that's even possible. But let me know what you guys think. My name is LFR Jojo, and I'll see you guys on the next one.